when we talk to a kid like a toddler, and we hardly use five to 10 words, but we can make that communication between a toddler and between an adult. And programming languages are usually 30 to 40 words, right? If you take C language or any language, it's like 30 words. But we should learn to use those 30 words efficiently to communicate with computer. That's the core concept of any programming language. But we are seeing it the other way around. We are seeing it, this is like operators, functions, all this jargons getting into people's mind first before understanding this simple structure. uh, Most of the programmers are doing it like mindlessly. That's what I have experienced. When you give a problem, we tend to solve it the way we know. It might not be the correct solution, it might not be the correct approach. We tend to develop personality. That personality sticks to the way we develop things. For example, if you take Java development, and about 90% of the people in the industry are using one IDE or one editor that gives everything pre-packaged, which means there is a distance between developer and computer. Everything is given to you, all you have to work is in a narrow circle. But if something goes out of that circle, we don't know what to do. Then we just, ask somebody and do copy paste. Because the academic institutions are having a rigid framework, right? They have their own structure. I mean, we cannot entirely blame, but they want to maintain a ledger kind of a model. Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 3. But we should make the experience enjoyable. And unfortunately, that's not a typical academic way of doing things. And for example, if you are asking a toddler to draw something on a paper, they'll be happy. But if you ask them to write a formula from day one, they will just scare. That's the reason why programming languages are called languages, right? How we learn our own languages. We do small sounds, phrases, and then we interact, that we make some mistakes, do something beautifully every day until we become professional or academician or a public speaker, right? You can make a living out of it, but before that, you should enjoy the process, get immersed into that experience. Without it, we cannot explore the full boot camps and hackathons. These are very good. The reason is, when you are going to a boot camp or a hackathon, you see people from different backgrounds, different languages, different ideologies. Then you exchange ideas. When Richard Feynman says, if you want to learn something, teach something. When you are having a discussion, it's already kind of a teaching. You are trying to explain a small programming concept to your fellow people. At that moment, you will have a revelation. Oh, but I realized when I explained it, I was wrong a bit, but I was also getting a clarity a bit. Like that conversation will help. I've started from zero. As of now, I've been working on different programming languages. So far, I've worked in 14 different programming languages. Okay.
Right.
So
Not bad.
the problem is, I've tried learning some languages on my own. It takes years. The problem is, I know how to read a textbook. I know how to read a web page. I know how to watch a video also. What happens is, the initial couple of hours or couple of sessions are okay, easier concept. When you are going to the deeper end of the pool, then you have this psychological barrier. When things are getting a little bit complex, then sometimes what we do is we postpone things. Okay, tomorrow we'll cover this topic, and then tomorrow never comes. And the second problem is, we give up sometimes, unfortunately. Maybe it's over my pay grade. Maybe it's extracurricular, more than what is required to pass my exam, like that. Just cover the syllabus, go home, and be happy about it. Like that, we just give up in the middle. But if you are, it's like paying for the gym membership. You can go to gym and then you can have a personal instructor. You can go to gym, but the results are slightly better when somebody. If you're going to a gym with your friend, then there's a high chance you will continue going. If you're having a paid instructor, then it will have even higher chance of working out properly, and maybe start seeing the result. That will in turn motivate you. Like that, I would recommend people to explore things on their own, but at some point you have to commit yourself to just pass that psychological barrier. You don't give up when you are seeing the deeper end of the pool. So somebody will be able to guide you or get you through that period of maybe a week or so. Then you'll start enjoying. Maybe you can start producing something visually what you can see. So that's the ideal way of learning something.
Why you think it's so hot, and why you think it deserves the love it's getting?
It deserves more love, to be honest. Again, if I want to state the language rest um, in one sentence, it's not even a language. It's a new way of thinking, or it's a new way of communicating with computer. It's a new like paradigm shift, I would say. There has been many languages historically. There are like hundreds of languages actually. By industry popular, maybe about 20 languages based on different industry. But Rust is solving many crucial problems for products as well as the developers. Some languages help building better products. Some languages are helping the developers, but there is no language that is helping the both end of the spectrum. I'll tell why. For example, if you take Python, it's very popular. Okay, it is actually helping developers more than the products. By which what I mean is you can learn Python quickly and start developing. You can get job. You can start producing results. But the product will not be as fast as it could be if you're writing something in C or Rust. That could use the maximum efficiency out of your server or a computer or a mobile phone, right? But that's the trade-off most of the languages are making. Either you develop faster or you run the product faster and safer. But Rust is fast and safe at the same time. Not only fast in terms of how the performance is doing, the development cycle itself is faster. For example, if it is Java, just to open a file, process lines from the text file, produce a new result, you have to import a lot of libraries, then you have to write classes. By the time you finish your simple file processing, you will have 150 lines of code. The same thing you can do in Python. That will have probably 10 lines of code. But the performance, Python will be 3 times slower than the Java version. But what if you can have something even faster than Java, but even lesser number of lines than Python? That's where Rust is. It's really fast to develop. It's really fast to execute. I mean, there's no surprise. Ever since Rust has been introduced into the public market, Stack Overflow is the go-to place for all the developers to get queries answered, everything. Ever since the past 8 years, Rust is the most loved language by its developers, and the percentage is close to 90. Most of the time,
That's
the language, we don't choose language. Our managers, our boss, our clients, they will be choosing what stack that we should work with. When we are given languages like Go or Swift, something like that, we reluctantly learn, use it day to day, develop products, ship it. That's fine, but we don't like really love that. But Rust is the first language that is changing. Sometimes it's chosen by the leaders or the teams. Sometimes developers themselves, they can choose the language. I have chosen language, as a choice 6 years ago. But ever since, I'm not using that many language nowadays. Rust is, serving all my needs.
okay. Uh, there is this debate about C++ and Rust,
Yeah.
and some people are saying that it's probably the safety aspect is the only thing where Rust beats C++. Um,
That's very conservative, but at least that credit goes to Rust already. It's not only safety. I'll tell you. Rust, you have to do. You can do a lot of things. Performance, safety, everything is there. But in C++, you have to do things manually. let's say, if you're having a small vector, if you're having a complex data structure, you have to define the structure, you have to define the memory aspect of it, you have to define a lot of pointers. Again, it comes under that safety, but it's not only the safetiness, but also the development cycle will be elongated. You will take at least two times what you would take to develop the same package in Rust. That is also there. If you're an entrepreneur, if you are a startup company, and if you are working in an R&D based company, time is money. If your competitors are building a prototype, if they are going to market sooner than you, having same level of performance, I don't see a win point spending a lot of time for the same problem.
Now, why nobody's talking about even remotely incorporating a program like Rust to the college curriculums? If it is that good or that big or is that popular it's getting, why nobody's taking note of that and talking
But
about
usually,
incorporating
yeah,
it?
academic institutions have this, trend, right? Only just following the industry demand.
Yeah, C, Java.
But you're right. I get the point. But you take MIT, you take NASA, and then see what they are using, and they are already
Talking about big
using.
boys.
Yeah, and then in a couple of years, other institutions will also follow that trend. I mean, they're just getting there. And now, Java, how it was popularized? It was popularized by Oracle, right? It was owned by a company, and they are running their own training programs. They're all, creating their own talent pool. Now, as of now, today in India, close to 1 lakh Rust vacancies are there. Companies are not able to fill that gap because we don't have developers. But if somebody, if some institution, training institution or a corporate company, if investing in creating that talent pool, then we will see academic institution also jumping in. Not only MITs, our own institutions, our own training labs will jump into that space. If you are not going to create that talent pool today, then we will be losing a lot of projects to other countries, other East Asian countries, or East European countries, because we had this big opportunity when the paradigm shift was happening from C to Java, late 90s, early 2000s. Many big companies in India created the talent pool. That's what brought many of the projects to Indian IT industry, right? Now the paradigm shift is going towards Rust, safer programming language. If we are not able to capture this tide, we might lose that opportunity.
But is Rust a difficult language to learn, especially if you're new to programming or haven't had any previous programming experience?
There is that reputation. The reason being is in the I've stated Rust is not only a new programming language; it's a new way of thinking. Once if we get that, our mental model, it's not that difficult to learn. There are some new concept introduced in the Rust itself. We call it the ownership, and there is also a kind of a saying in the Rust community. After your first week, from second and third week, you will be fighting against a borrow checker. That's what they say. Once you finish that fight, then everything becomes like easier for you. So you don't have to fight anymore. The reason is, if somebody is having a decade of experience, or maybe 5 years of university education, learning computer science in a typical way, Rust is breaking all that status quo. That's where people are having this fight. No, 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 no. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, many companies, if you take like Discord or Figma, these are big companies, right? And they were looking for a candidate programming language to redesign high performance systems. They were exploring, Go, Python, Swift, other languages also. Ended up using Rust. Reason, it checks all the boxes, whatever they needed: performance, development cycle, and everything. After that porting, many companies have stated they had mix of engineers. Some people are experienced, some people are like freshers. It's almost always the case. The freshers without deep connection with any existing languages, they had easier time adopting to Rust. But it's not always the case. For example, if there is a C++ developer who's been working with C++ for 20 years, if he or she understand the pain points of using C++ in complex systems, then they will be like a welcoming this change. Okay, I don't have to fight with these memory problems, all this memory bugs. Now I get the same performance without fighting with the programming language, and that experience also shared by not like novice programmers, like pros, like guru level programmers. They are enjoying it. Yeah, better programming practices. Even today, in some cases, I'm maintaining legacy systems which are built in other languages like Python or JavaScript or something like that. When I look at the code, since I'm using Rust so extensively, the practices are coming into my conscious. How Rust compiler would have never, compiled this one. Even though logically it's correct, but it's not very safe way of doing it. During runtime, anything can happen. Maybe it might have a big memory footprint that could be avoided easily. Like there's so many like things coming into my mind. Basically, what I'm saying is using Rust makes me a better programmer in other languages as well. That argument, I would say, introduce Rust as early as possible, even to school kids. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that makes me a better developer in any language, basically. That will also, highlight one characteristics of Rust. When people are arguing, it's very strict language. It's strongly typed. It wouldn't allow to be flexible. I mean, the flexibility given by Rust language is more than enough to produce any day-to-day, tools. You can build command line application. You can build web application. You can build APIs, cloud. Even entire operating systems are being built using Rust. Flexibility is not an issue. The practices, people say, languages with manual memory management like C++ has very powerful dangerous tools, that makes people hurt themselves rather than helping. Rust is trying to provide all the power without giving the danger. But if you are a you know super good developer, if you know everything what is happening in and out of a memory, Rust is also giving that option. You can go something called unsafe Rust. I'm going to play directly with pointers. Let's see what comes out of it. You can do that, but still, Rust is not entirely blocking it, but reaching up until that point, whenever you are declaring something into memory or pointer, Rust is making sure there is only one owner for any given piece of data. That's what the memory, ownership model that Rust introduced, that no other language in the industry, ever had that concept. It's like, I can borrow a book from you, I can read all the pages. But if I'm going to remove a page from out of that book, then we will have hard time facing each other. I will not be able to explain to you why I removed that page. That's what called ownership. I can borrow n number of things, but there's going to be always only one owner for a given piece of data. That's what the entire concept of Rust. And Rust syntax is also intentionally unoriginal. That's what the official statement says, which means if you know JavaScript, if you know Python or Lisp or Haskell, if you're coming from any other language, you will see some kind of a familiarity. It's not forcing, a camel case. It's not forcing, you have to put this, data annotation, anything like that. You can choose your own way of doing it, but the syntax will be very simple, like any scripting language, like Python or JavaScript. With that, you can achieve C-level performance. That's it. Yeah, it's going to only grow. That is my short answer. I'll just give a couple of stories why it is going to grow. It's not my fortune telling or something. So the Rust is owned by community entirely. It's not owned by any particular company per se, and it's fully society, community driven. But that's not enough. There are many open source projects that also miserably failed. But here, the Rust is now maintained by a body called Rust Foundation. That foundation is jointly owned by all the big brothers. Take Google, IBM, Microsoft, Amazon Web Services, and Huawei. If we take all these companies, Google, IBM, Microsoft, AWS, Huawei, Mozilla Foundation, put together all of them, their valuation is more than, close to $4 trillion. It's not only that money, but also the number of products they are building and number of companies you are using these products. Let's take this example. Amazon Web Services, It is having this Lambda functions, server infrastructure. Everything is built
Right.
100% Rust code. You know that it's very simple. A bottle rocket is an operating system, cloud-based. Google, for example, they are building this Fuchsia operating system that is completely Rust, like at least 99% fully Rust, which means there is a business demand already created by these big companies, maybe the market leaders, and there'll be medium and small industries will be following. Whoever is providing services to these big companies will also tend to follow that trend. Another maybe testament for the quality of the language itself, this Linux community, right? If we take any devices in the planet Earth, if we take mobile phones, about 90% of them running Android, right? And all the cars, washing machines, all the IoT devices, everything is running some form of Linux operating system in it. And there is Linux kernel. And the Linux kernel has been developed from the 90s. It's been around more than 25 years, and it has a reputation of being C biased. The entire Linux kernel is like 20 million lines of Rust C code so far, and Linus Torvald is still maintaining that project. And he never liked C++ because what he thought is the benefits promised by C++ is not really worthwhile taking the risk of the memory problems that would come by using C++. That's my own wordings. That's the message he repeatedly gives. Okay, but now the Linux community, including Linus Torvald, are convinced that we should start receiving patches written in Rust language into Linux kernel. There cannot be more than bigger statement than this, and it's a big community. It's not only a open source community. If you take the semiconductor industry, if you take Intel, AMD, ARM processor, there are more than 165 different platforms. Okay, these are like slightly different variants of CPU, GPU, semiconductor, all this. And Rust is as of now supporting all of them. You can write Rust pipelines that will run in any of these platforms, which means the device drivers are developed by respective companies, and they are sending these patches to Linux Foundation to accept it and make it part of the kernel. So it's already there. The market adaptation started. Only the academia adaptation should start now. That's it.
It's a good language to invest in,
Yes, absolutely.
so to
I mean,
speak.
there are like many arguments saying Rust is going to be the language for next 40 years at least. Now
That's a long shot. I mean, like
yeah, I mean the
40
past
years
40
probably.
years, yeah, has been
Uh-huh.
shaped by C language one way or another.
Mm.
Right.
Mhm.
The future 40 years will be molded by
So that's a
Rust.
that's a big statement. That's a
It is.
very
It
big
is.
statement.
I am willing to take that risk because I've seen the growth from
Mm.
2009. Rust has come a long way.
Mm, mm,
The
mm,
Firefox, browser nowadays the fastest and safest browser. Only reason is Rust. And Gordon Hore was just a individual working on this hobby project from 2009 onwards. In 2010 11, Mozilla Foundation adopted this language. The reason is they were looking to create new components for the Firefox browser itself. And it's millions of lines of code, both Chrome and Firefox.
mm,
These are the only two browsers in the market. Everything else, adaptation on top of either Chrome or Firefox, basically. That's it.
mhm,
And I'll just give one module example. So something called Stylo. It's part of Firefox engine. That is basically whatever CSS style we are writing, there should be a parser reading that CSS instruction, making our websites beautiful. Okay,
mhm,
that was 2 lakhs lines of C++ code before, and now
mhm,
it is 85,000 lines of Rust code, and it's many times faster, and it's less than half the size of code base. And why we
mhm.
wouldn't want to use such a system? That's it. Very simple.